Yes, sir.
All right, good morning, everyone. The meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobman. Has anyone signed up for public comment?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Les Trobman, General Counsel. We do have a few individuals who are here to speak for public comment this morning. When I call your name, go ahead and unmute yourself and then state your name for the record and then go ahead and begin with your comments. First, we have Ms. Yvonne Robinson.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Yvonne Robinson.
Good morning. Go ahead and proceed.
I'm speaking today because I have applied for my unemployment and I have been denied for my UC, PUA, and DUA. Unfortunately, last year when COVID came through, I was under a disaster claim from 2019 storm Imelda hitting the Gulf Coast. However, in reading your documentation that you have from the advisory, the Unemployment Insurance Program letter number 1620, change 1, it states in there that an individual must self-certify that he or she is unemployed, partially unemployed, or unable or unavailable to work because of COVID-19 related risk issues issued under Section 2102 A3A 11 1 CARES Act. It says under this, an individual that is filing for PUA does not need to provide proof of employment or self-employed. I am a self-employed contractor, independent contractor. However, it goes on to state that on number 6, it says, can a state convert an ineligible regular UC claim to a PUA claim? The answer is, it says it depends. It says, including self-employment individuals that has one of the COVID-19 related reasons listed in Section 2102A, 3A, II, and I of the CARES Act. Another question is states here, number 33, says, if an individual disqualifies for regular UC because of a job separation that occurred prior to the individual's unemployment due to COVID-19, he or she is potentially eligible for PUA. The answer is yes. I was told that my claim was denied because I was already receiving a DUA prior and it didn't cover that. Again, it states in here too that anyone who does not qualify for UC program and who would be able and available to work if it was for not one or more of the COVID-19 related reasons listed in Section 2102 of the CARES Act. In addition to that, under the section UIPL 16 through 20, and if you look at the statements step 5, 7, and 10 that relates to me as an independent contractor, it also states also too that the independent contractor who has suspend or severely limit their customary work activities as a direct result of COVID-19 public health emergency may be eligible for PUA benefits, even if they do not squarely fit into that criteria. And it gives the following examples for that. I would just like to know, what do I need to do? I've talked to my Senator, John Cornyn. I've been on there with my state representative, Andrew Weber. Also, lastly, my representative, Mr. Vasu. Office in trying to relentlessly get someone to talk to me, listen to me, and hear what I have to say in regards to this, because for the last year, I have not received anything from the unemployment, and I have been severely impacted because of it. And the work and being an independent contractor, I just think it's unfair that you get swooped in this and there's no recourse. And again, trying to get through to the system is horrible. You're on hold 3 or 4 hours, then it clicks you off and you have to try again. I would just like today for that to be noted on the record so somebody could possibly look at this and possibly assist me and telling me what do I need to do. I did apply for a appeal April. I did not get heard until August. And again, during that time, I kept following like they told me to. And again, at this time and date, I still filed and I have not received anything from TWC. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson, for your comments. We will be having an unemployment insurance specialist be reaching out to you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Elisa Lassiter.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please proceed.
First off, I would like to thank the commission for allowing me this time to address the court. My name is Alicia Lassiter, and I'm the claimant in the appeal, and I am in favor of the reversing the tribunal decision. Due to COVID-19, school buildings were ordered closed for my 11 and 13-year-old, and the school transitioned to remote learning at home. The daycare centers also closed for my 3 and 5-year-old due to the pandemic. At the present time, my 11 and 13-year-old continue to hybrid learn. My 13-year-old son has some challenges that require several sports services at school. To ensure his needs are met, he needs constant supervision, motivation, direction, and support. This includes during the summer months. The summer camps closed during the pandemic as well. I would like to provide clarification about lack of my family support. Without elaborating into too many details, I will say a few years back, I made a decision to ensure the safety of myself and 3 young children. I left my hometown of Providence, Rhode Island. We traveled in a Greyhound. It was a long 3 days before we got here to Texas. Besides my sister who arrived before my delivery, I have no other adult or immediate family here. I only know a handful of people, and due to COVID concerns, no one would care for my kids. During my employment, I endured racial slurs. I dealt with an irate guest that resulted in a police call. On 3 occasions, my paycheck bounced, but I remained because I am a single mom of 4 and they rely on me. I will always have my children's best interests first. Each shift that I work put my children in jeopardy. I couldn't continue risking going to jail, risking my children possibly taken from me, or keep risking their safety because of lack of a proper adult supervision. COVID-19 disrupted my child care arrangements that I relied on so that I could provide and work for my family. Unfortunately, due to lack of child care, my only option was to resign. I provided my job with a notice of resignation stating COVID concerns. I do have an 11-year-old son who has underlying health conditions. He did require hospitalization when we lived in Rhode Island for bronchiolitis, and it did require treatment. I did enroll him back into school when it was offered in November, and then within 1 month of that, I received a call from the school nurse, and he was ordered to self-quarantine for presenting COVID symptoms. He wasn't able to return until January of this year. In addition to the COVID concerns, I provided my job with the most important factor, and that was that I needed to resign due to lack of proper child care. Although I was really disappointed with the tribunal decision, I do appreciate talking, being able to talk this morning, and the commission taking the time to review my case. I ask that if you haven't already, to please look at all the support and documentation that I have sent in. There are so many guidelines and factors that do apply to my family situation. My hope is that the commission votes to overturn the tribunal decision next week on May 4th and reinstate my benefits under PUA, in which I believe I'm eligible for benefits. Finally, I would like to acknowledge that I am responsible for a $405 overpayment. I never did intend to defraud or gain anybody. The hours at my job were reduced due to COVID. That's why we ended up applying for the benefits. If offered that same day, I would pick up any hours, maybe the manager had to do a supply run, or before this, everybody started getting sick, so there were a lot of calls. So I would pick up maybe an extra hour or two, and unfortunately it resulted in an overpayment because my job schedule and TWC's schedule differed by a week. So when registering for payment, I did input what the hours were posted. I am a dedicated and honest person. I'm just trying to be a good mom, a good person, and a good citizen. It has been rough these past few months for me and my family without an income, but I do have faith that everything will work out. I will not keep you long. I want to once again thank the commission for allowing me this time to speak and present my own testimony. May the commission, the courts, and other members have a great day. Y'all stay safe, and thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Lassiter. Our final commenter this morning is Lisa Gibson.
Good girl, baby. You did good. Come on, Lisa.
Go ahead, if everyone will mute themselves, so we can see if Ms. Gibson may not have joined us this morning. And so with that, commissioners, we have concluded our public comment.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
No cases to reconsider under agenda item 3,
That's
correct?
correct. No
All right.
cases.
Agenda item 4, no tax cases on docket 17.
Correct.
Mhm. No fair housing cases on agenda item 5.
Correct.
Agenda item 6, no wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion.
Correct. None pulled for additional discussion, but you should have received the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 17.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 17.
I second the motion, except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 17.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting is reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 17.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Let's move to agenda item 7, consideration of unemployment insurance cases. On docket 17, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you.
2575102. Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant's hours were reduced by 50% due to the pandemic. The employer's testimony that the claimant never complained about the hours is directly contradicted by the written statements that the employer submitted to TWC prior to the hearing. The employer applied for a PPP loan, but there was no guarantee that the employer would receive the loan. The reduction in hours provided the claimant good cause connected with the work for quitting. Because the reduction in hours was caused by the pandemic, the employer's account should be protected. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback disaster.
I agree with Commissioner Alvarez. The AT decision should be modified because the reduction in the claimant's hours resulted from the pandemic. I would agree to qualify the claimant for benefits under the disaster provisions of the act. In addition, the employer should not be charged for benefits paid to the claimant in this case. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision. No voluntary leaving, no chargeback disaster.
No voluntary leaving, no chargeback disaster.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 2624033. Commissioner Dimerson.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant provided several reasons for quitting. However, the primary reason for a resignation can be determined from the fact-finding statement she provided to the commission. In her initial statement, the claimant specified that she quit due to concerns about COVID-19 after the employer planned to reopen to the public. The claimant's underlying medical condition, coupled with her position as a customer service representative during a pandemic, supports that the claimant should be qualified for benefits. However, the employer's account should be protected from the charge under the disaster provisions of the act. We should therefore modify the AT decision. No voluntary leaving, no chargeback disaster.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson.
I agree.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 2640952. Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be affirmed. The employer changed how it distributed its assignments. The claimant worked under the change system for several months to see how it would affect his pay. The claimant's flagged hours went from 50 to 30, which was effectively a 40% reduction in pay. Because the claimant's pay was reduced by 40%, the claimant established good cause connected with the work for quitting. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving chargeback.
The AT decision should be reversed. The totality of the evidence does not support that the claimant quit due to a reduction in pay. The employer's undisputed testimony established that the claimant was offered a raise to offset any lack of hours, but the claimant rejected that offer. Moreover, the employer has consistently stated, and the claimant also testified, that the claimant resigned due to personal family issues. None of the exceptions to disqualification apply to the facts of this case, since the claimant quit for personal reasons, and the evidence is insufficient to support an MVI vote. The claimant quit without work-connected good cause, and we should reverse the AT decision. Voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Ms. Miller, short form dissent and memo to consider PUA eligibility.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez, I have your dissent and we will send the memo.
Case number 2644961. Commissioner Dimerson.
The AT decision should be modified. I do not dispute the decisions on the severance issue. As to the job separation, the totality of the evidence supports a finding of misconduct in this case. The claimant was discharged for her continued use of profane and offensive language in front of coworkers. The claimant does not deny this conduct. Instead, she argues that her actions were okay with the employer. This is not persuasive. The claimant has provided inconsistent statements regarding her disciplinary history, rendering her testimony less than credible. The record shows that the claimant had a history of inappropriate behavior and discipline, and she should have known that her continued use of vulgar language with her coworkers could lead to discharge. Since the claimant continued to ignore the employer's directive, we should modify the AT decision: misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response, no severance disqualification.
The AT decision is supportable. On the severance pay issue, the payment made to the claimant did not constitute severance pay because it was a compensation for unused PTO. On the separation, the claimant had only been formally reprimanded one time 2.5 years before her discharge. The employer alleged that the claimant used inappropriate language in the office daily, which the claimant denied. If the claimant used such language as often as the employer contended, then it would have been reasonable to take further action before she eventually was discharged. The AT had a reasonable basis to conclude that the claimant's actions did not rise to the level of misconduct. Affirm the AT severance pay eligible, no misconduct chargeback.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response, no severance disqualification.
Short form dissent.
Commissioner Alvarez, I have your short form dissent.
Case number 2645983, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant is 73 years old and has a history of cancer and HIV. He worked at a rehabilitation center where his clients did not always wear masks. The claimant was at risk for serious illness if he contracted COVID-19 and reasonably feared for his health. He had good cause connected with the work to quit. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, and no chargeback due to disaster.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant quit due to concerns about COVID-19. However, the employer stated that the employees who contacted HR were given the option to take a leave of absence during the pandemic. The employer had no record of the claimant contacting HR. The employer went on to state that it had worked with employees who raised COVID-19 concerns with HR with advanced pay, paid and unpaid time off, and advanced time off. Since the claimant did not allow the employer an adequate opportunity to remedy his concerns, he quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2679846, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant was offered work that was consistent with his prior job and at an increased rate of pay. As such, the work offer was suitable. However, the claimant rejected the offer due to reasons that did not constitute good cause for rejecting an offer of suitable work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, suitable work disqualification, overpayment of $2,526.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant recently had a child while he was laid off. He was supposed to begin a new job on June 26, 2020, but was unable to accept the job due to a lack of childcare. The claimant's wife was already working, and he had no other childcare options. There was also a lack of childcare providers in his area as a result of the pandemic. Under agency policy, an individual who refuses an offer of work should not be disqualified if the individual has no access to childcare due to the pandemic. The claimant should not be disqualified for refusing an offer of suitable work. Reverse the AT, no suitable work disqualification, no overpayment.
Reverse the AT, no suitable work disqualification, no overpayment.
A short form dissent, and given the claimant's statements about childcare, I would like to request a memo to UIA and OS to investigate the claimant's availability for work.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson, I have your short form dissent. We will send the memo.
Thank you.
Case number 2689881, Commissioner Alvarez.
The motion to rehear should be denied. The evidence will not change the outcome of the case. Whether the claimant or his witness were warned the day after they left work early was never an issue in deciding this case. The issue was what conversation the claimant and his witness had with the supervisor on duty when they left. The employer's offered evidence does not address the issues in dispute in this case. Because the evidence would not change the outcome of the case, the motion to rehear fails to meet the requirements of Rule 17, deny MR.
The employer's motion should be granted. The employer has provided new evidence and a compelling reason why it was not able to present it earlier. Indeed, a party cannot reasonably be expected to have documentation readily available for every conceivable defense the opposing party might make. This is especially the situation if the defense involves an untruth. Lastly, the employer's documentation could change the outcome of the case since it appears to address the credibility of the claimant's witness, which in turn would have a bearing on whether the employer has met its burden of establishing misconduct by a preponderance of the evidence. Since the employer has met all three MR criteria, the employer's motion for rehearing should be granted for its new evidence.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dimerson, I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 2712884, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant could no longer work its schedule due to personal reasons. The claimant requested a schedule change and his request could not be accommodated. However, this is not the reason for the claimant's separation. Indeed, the employer stated that it told the claimant to find another job, gave him 1 day off, and asked him to work with the employer until the end of his schedule. The employer further stated that the claimant could not and did not show up or even call, so the employer proceeded with termination. This is also supported by the employer's response to the notice of the claim, since it stated that the claimant did not report for work and the claimant was unable to work its schedule. As such, the claimant was not terminated for requesting a schedule change, but instead for his failure to show up for the scheduled work. Accordingly, the claimant's actions constituted work-connected misconduct, and we should reverse the AT decision. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is supportable. The claimant requested to be scheduled between 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. due to ongoing personal issues and issues caused by the pandemic. The employer notified the claimant to find another job, effectively discharging him. The claimant's request for a new schedule did not constitute misconduct, and the employer has failed to provide sufficient evidence to establish the claimant otherwise committed misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dimerson.
Thank you.
Case number 2737678, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. Timely claimant appeal, no voluntary leaving, no overpayment. The claimant began having health issues in October of 2020. She had a telemedicine visit and then saw her doctor again on October 11th. At that visit, she tested negative for COVID-19, but was still feeling ill and was told that she needed additional testing. She informed the employer that she needed more time off, but the employer responded that it would be considered job abandonment if she was not at work the next day. Since she was still sick, she was unable to return. The claimant saw her doctor again and provided medical documentation that she was taken off work for several additional days. As the claimant was unable to return to work due to her own personal illness and provided medical documentation, she had good cause to quit. Modify the AT, timely appeal, no voluntary leaving due to MBI, no overpayment.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. I agree that the claimant filed a timely appeal. As to the job separation, by filing her unemployment claim, the claimant is considered to have initiated the job separation. Because the claimant's doctor had not advised her to quit her job at the time that she filed, the claimant's quitting was under disqualifying circumstances and the underlying overpayment is appropriate. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, timely claimant appeal, voluntary leaving, overpayment of $1,070.
Affirm the AT, timely claimant appeal, voluntary leaving, overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2738260, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was ill. The claimant tested negative for COVID, but she was still considered to have a suspected case of COVID based on symptoms and his own exposure to a COVID positive individual. The owner doctor was the COVID positive individual who failed to quarantine and exposed the claimant to COVID. The owner doctor provided sworn testimony that the claimant was only asked to provide medical documentation is directly contradicted by the text evidence in which the claimant was essentially told to go work or it would be his last day. The owner doctor insisted that the claimant work while ill, putting the lives of patients and staff at risk and putting the claimant's medical license at risk. The claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision by walking out of his job while he had patients waiting to see him and tossing his keys to a coworker on his way out. The claimant gave the employer a reasonable impression that he had quit. The claimant did not discuss his leaving with the supervisor, nor had a doctor advised him to quit. Thus, the claimant quit without good cause connected with the work and under disqualifying circumstances. We should reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Ms. Miller, short form and memo to determine PUA eligibility.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez, I have your short form dissent and we will send that memo.
Case number 274005 Commissioner Dimerson.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. After failing a health screening and taking a COVID test, the parties agreed that the sales manager instructed the claimant to quarantine for 10 days. While the claimant may not have been aware of the new employer's policy regarding quarantining, the claimant was given very specific instructions which he failed to follow. By December of 2020, after living through a pandemic for 9 months, the claimant should have known that what being quarantined from work for 10 days entailed. Because the claimant did not follow instructions related to the employer's health and safety protocols and visited the work site several times while he was supposed to be quarantined, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback. In the alternative, because the job separation resulted from the COVID-19 natural disaster, the claimant could be qualified for benefits and the employer's account protected from charge. No misconduct, no chargeback, disaster.
The decision should be reversed. No misconduct, chargeback. The claimant failed a health screening at work, but then testified negative for COVID-19. In the past, he had been allowed to return to work after a negative test, but in this instance, he was informed that he needed to quarantine for 10 days. The employer testified in their policy was verbal, but the employer's witness couldn't remember telling the claimant about the policy. Instead, the witness testified that the claimant was told by a text to quarantine for 10 days. However, the employer failed to inform the claimant what they meant by quarantine. The claimant reasonably believed it only meant that he couldn't work during that time. The claimant was unaware that the employer also meant to exclude him from picking up a purchase from another store location. Since the employer failed to tell the claimant the policy details, and since the claimant's actions were not unreasonable after a negative test, the claimant's actions were not misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
Case number 274006 Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant made an in-person insurance sales. When the pandemic hit, customers were understandably unwilling to meet the claimant in person, and he was therefore unable to make any sales. The claimant had already determined before the pandemic that over-the-phone sales were not economically feasible. The claimant was unemployed as a result of the pandemic, and he should be qualified for PUA benefits. Reverse the AT, PUA eligible, no overpayment.
The AT decision is supportable. The claimant sold insurance. He was accustomed to doing sales in person, but once the pandemic hit, he stopped arranging in-person sales calls. He did not attempt to see whether he could accomplish sales over the phone. The evidence does not show that he was out of work due to the pandemic. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant is ineligible for PUA benefits beginning March 1st, 2020.
Affirm the AT, claimant's not eligible for PUA beginning March 1st, 2020.
Ms. Miller, short form dissent.
Yes, sir, I have your short form dissent, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 275055 Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. Prior to the pandemic, the claimant worked as a driver for Uber and Lyft. The claimant stopped working due to the shutdown orders at the beginning of the pandemic. He has not returned to work as a driver because he is in high-risk category for severe illness from COVID-19. The claimant suffered a severe heart attack in 2015. He wants to receive a vaccine before returning to work. The claimant's desire to receive medical protection from the virus before returning to work is reasonable given his health history. He should not be disqualified from receiving PUA. Reverse AAT PUA eligible.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was a ride-share driver for two major ride-sharing services. His business activities were shut down as a result of the pandemic. The record credibly indicates that he and his wife not only contracted COVID-19, but also that he is in a high-risk group due to a propensity for severe heart attacks. Accordingly, there is sufficient evidence to reverse the AT decision. The claimant is eligible for PUA benefits beginning April 12th, 2020.
I concur with Commissioner Demerson.
Commissioner Alvarez, do you agree with the April 12th, 2020 date?
Let me check. Yes, I do.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 2755795, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. No misconduct, no chargeback, MVI. The claimant was working when he found out that his son's babysitter had tested positive for COVID-19 and that his son had a high fever. The claimant's wife was not allowed to receive calls at work, and she was unaware of the situation. The claimant informed the employer of his need to return home to care for his son. The claimant provided medical documentation showing that he took his son to the emergency room. The claimant maintained contact with the employer and tried to return to work. The employer testified that they only wanted documentation of the ER visit. However, the employer's text messages in Exhibit 5 clearly show that the employer was asking for medical documentation for the claimant's entire family. As such, the claimant is in the more credible witness, and the employer's request for medical documentation for his entire family was unreasonable. Therefore, as the claimant was separated due to a personal illness of a minor child, he should be qualified for benefits. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant did not complete his work duties on his last day of work, nor did he inform the employer that he was taking off the rest of the day without completing his deliveries. GPS records alerted the employer to the claimant's actions, which prompted the employer to contact the claimant. The claimant was instructed to provide proof of his emergency for that day. Despite having medical documentation to excuse his absence, the claimant refused to comply with the employer's reasonable request. Thus, because the claimant was absent without prior notice to the employer and refused to provide medical documentation as requested, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response issue.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2760119, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. Prior to the pandemic, the claimant worked as a hairdresser, a position that requires a high amount of contact with the public. The claimant stopped working when her daughter's school was shut down at the beginning of the pandemic. While her daughter has since returned to school, the claimant has been unwilling to return to work because she has diabetes and COPD, and therefore is in high risk category for severe illness from COVID-19. The claimant's unemployment is a direct result of the pandemic, and she should not be disqualified from receiving PUA. Reverse AT, PUA eligible, and a memo to UIA and OS to backdate the claimant's PUA claimant to when she became unemployed.
The AT decision is supportable. Greatly sympathize with the claimant's situation since she has more than one serious medical problem that would put her at greater risk if she were to become infected with the COVID-19 virus. But the parameters of the PUA are clear. Not only must a PUA recipient be out of work due to the pandemic, but they must also be able to work and available for work. The claimant's testimony makes it clear that due to her general fear of being exposed to the virus and her stated inability to wear a mask, she is ineligible for PUA benefits starting with the date of her claim. However, since she last worked in March of 2020 and her workplace became unavailable due to the pandemic at the time, at that time, and her child's school was also closed during much of 2020. She sent a memo to UIA and OS to determine whether her claim might be backdated to sometime beginning in March of 2020, and at what point she was no longer unemployed due to the pandemic.
Give me one moment, please. Commissioner Jimerson, is your vote to affirm?
The AT decision is supportable, and so or since she last worked in March 2020, the workplace became unavailable. Sending a memo to UIA and OS to determine whether a claim might be backdated to sometime beginning in March 2020.
I need to be able to categorize it as affirm, reverse, or modify.
Let me talk to the council real quick.
And just for
We're
one,
going to
one
affirm.
note, the memo is the complicating factor.
Okay,
Mhm.
affirm. Thank you. You got it? So we're going to affirm,
Affirm
Uh-huh.
plus memo.
right?
Affirm the AT, claim is not eligible for PUA beginning November 8, 2020, and then a memo to investigate the backdating of the claimant's PUA claim.
Thank you. The majority vote is to affirm the ineligibility or disqualification of the PUA benefits and to send a memo for investigation of backdating.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2762579, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was discharged after engaging in physical altercation with the customer. I understand that the claimant was provoked by the customer's use of a racial slur, and while I strongly condemn the customer's behavior, the claimant's use of violence in the workplace is not acceptable. According to the employer's policy, the claimant did not have to subject himself to such abuse and could have asked the customer to leave the store. However, this was not necessary since according to the claimant's fact-finding statements, the customer was walking out and leaving the premises when the claimant approached him to escort him out of the store. Because the claimant followed and continued to engage the customer and escalated an already volatile situation to a physically violent level, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response. In the alternative, because the witness referenced a witness statement and a video that was not submitted, we should rehear the case for submission and review of the additional evidence.
The decision should be affirmed. A customer became irate after being informed that the bathroom was out of order. The customer verbally abused the claimant by yelling racial slurs at him. As the claimant was escorting the customer out of the building, the customer physically assaulted the claimant. The claimant then acted in self-defense. Therefore, since the claimant was acting in self-defense, his actions were not misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form.
I have your short form dissent, Commissioner Dimerson.
Case number 2766072,
Commissioner Alvarez.
Commissioner Alvarez, sorry.
That's okay. The AT decision is not supportable. There is absolutely no evidence that the employer had a policy requiring employees to contact the employer for another assignment when their assignment ends. In the past, the claimant had brought clients to the employer and they had never offered her assignments. The claimant cannot be held responsible for not inquiring about another assignment when the employer has no policy requiring her to inquire about another assignment and the employer has never offered her work. She was therefore involuntarily separated when her client chose another provider and there was no further work for the claimant. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant did not notify the employer when her assignment ended. Furthermore, when the employer reached out to the claimant regarding the status of her assignment, the claimant did not ask for further work. By ending the employment relationship without notice and subsequently filing for unemployment benefits, the claimant initiated the job separation and quit without good cause connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Ms. Miller, short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez, I have your short form dissent. And that was the last pulled case under this agenda item for docket 17. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 17.
I'll move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 17.
Chairman, I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 17.
And I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 17.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. We're going to take a short break while we prepare for the rest of the meeting. Thank you. All right, let's pick back up. This is agenda item 8, discussion consideration possible action regarding the obligation reallocation of adult education and literacy funds.
Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Mahalia Baldini with the Workforce Development Division, Adult Education and Literacy. In the April 20th, 2021 Commission meeting, the Commission approved both to accept the voluntary deobligation in the amount of $460,761 from Grayson College and to proportionally reduce the performance targets for that grantee. In last week's meeting, the Commission discussed the reallocation of those deobligated funds to 3 adult education and literacy grantees who have met the objective criteria to receive the reallocated funds. The Commission requested that the reallocation item and associated performance targets be presented in today's meeting. So at this time, staff seeks direction on the following as reflected in your notebook materials. First, to accept the plan to reallocate the $460,761 of those deobligated funds to AEL grantees Austin Community College, Community Action Inc. of Central Texas, and Southwest Texas Junior College, as shown in Table 1. Secondly, to increase the program year 2021 performance targets associated with the reallocated funds for those same grantees, as shown in Table 2. Thank you for your time and considerations today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
None here, Chairman.
None here.
Do we have a motion?
Chairman, I move that we accept the plan to reallocate $460,761 deobligated funds to AEL grant recipients, Austin Community College, Community Action Inc. of Central Texas, and Southwest Texas Junior Colleges, as detailed in the discussion paper in Table 1, and that we adjust the program year 2021 performance targets for recipients of the reallocated funds as detailed in discussion paper in Table 2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank
See, yeah, thank you. Nothing on agenda item 9. Do we have anything on 10?
No, sir.
No. Moving on. No legislative proposals to discuss. There's no legislative report today.
No, sir.
Executive Director's report.
The only thing I have to report is I think Commissioner Alvarez had something he wanted to mention, I thought.
I do. Is this the appropriate time?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Chairman, last week, we visited South Texas where we received from the Rio Grande Valley Teach for America Association, the Institutional Catalyst Award presented to the Texas Workforce Commission. I was humbled to receive the award on behalf of the agency, but again, it's a reflection of everyone that's up here, my fellow commissioners, Office of Employer Initiatives, and that group and the whole agency. We were recognized for the work that we do with AEL, people with a disability, veterans, and again, as I referenced, Office of Employer Initiatives. So on behalf of the Teach for America, Rio Grande Valley Ed, they wanted me to present this to the agency. And if I may present it to you as the director, I would like to present this on behalf of them. And appropriate, we can take a picture of this whenever you're ready, Chairman.
Yeah, let's-
We can do it afterwards.
Yeah,
if you
let's
want.
adjourn this one.
Then I have another announcement, if I may.
Please.
Chairman, I was fortunate enough this past weekend to attend Waco's I guess it's somewhat of a CTE signing day where employers were present and participated in the MC3 signing day in Waco. And Local 72 and Local 529 had recipients receiving continuing ed courses from Frank Graves from McClellan Community College. Glad to be a participant in that. So I just wanted to acknowledge them at this time that we did attend our first signing day of the year at Local 72 and of course at Local 529. Thank you for allowing me to state that.
Thank you. Any other order of business?
Two quick points here. Ed, I'd like to have the team work with our team on back to work efforts, returning back to work. Employers have concerns about bringing folks back to work. And so I'm real curious to see if there are any best practices that are out there so that we can help our employers get employees back to work. And so initiatives around that effort would be fine. And then secondly, just a recognition, I have two individuals that have served, have anniversaries. And so Bonnie Downs, Sergeant Bonnie Downs came to us from the Veterans Commission, is celebrating 10 years. And then Kimberly Bradford Brown is celebrating 20 years. And so I wanted to send kudos out to those individuals for their work and their dedication over the years. That's it.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing here, Chairman.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned. Thank you.